Hello, welcome to the Diabolical podcast. This is the very first episode of the podcast. We actually my guest and I today recorded a sort of rough draft podcast a few weeks ago, but current events being what they are, things transpired, and that podcast was quickly made irrelevant by breaking news. So we re-recorded a couple weeks later. And so you will never get the pilot, but you're going to get the first episode of Diabolical Podcast. And our special guest, Ollie Barder, who is just a really interesting guy to talk to. He has a wealth of information and experience about the games industry, which he's worked in for many years, both on really in various sides of the aisle, working in development, working in testing, working in journalism. So Ollie has so much more experience than I do in video games, and he's just a really nice guy and a lot of fun to talk with. Lots of insights about the gaming industry, and from his unique perspective, he's a Brit living in Japan. He's worked for lots of different companies and just crossed paths with lots of interesting people in the field. So buckle up. We talk for over an hour. I'll have to check, but it's a good long conversation. So hopefully you enjoy it, and this will be the first of many conversations with interesting people, both in video games, entertainment, and all across. Media, politics. Who knows? This is just the beginning. So I hope you do subscribe to this podcast, and I appreciate you watching or listening, however you do consume podcasts. So thank you very much, and enjoy. Okay, this is the very first episode of my new podcast, my Diabolical podcast, which would go with my Diabolical Substack and my Diabolical YouTube channel. And we've got Ollie Barder with us. Ollie, good to see you again.
Yes, it only took us 6-7 years, but
yeah,
we got there in the end.
We had a test podcast that kind of was poorly timed, so we're doing this again. Hopefully our timing is a little better.
yeah, we literally did it like a day before like a major news drop. So that was just like... But no, I like your new den. That's excellent.
Thank you. Yeah. Oh yeah, we were just talking about my swords. I've got my Conan sword and my medieval war sword. Just in case the zombie apocalypse happens, or civil war.
Do you do HEMA, by the way? Do you actually do
I don't really. I want to. I think we have a group here, and I've got like a practice sword also, and I've been thinking like I need to do that.
That looks really fun. Because here in Japan, totally. I mean, it's just kendo. I mean, I don't really know if there's any kind of like HEMA here, but no, I always find that stuff really interesting, like the way they try and figure out all the old medieval, effectively martial arts of using swords.
Right.
So.
Totally.
And they're using like hundreds of years old manuscripts of poorly drawn, and it's like really interesting how they work it out. So
yeah, it's a whole thing. I would like to. I've got this whole self-improvement thing going on, and I think like learning how to fight and learning some martial arts, some sword fighting, some shooting, all that stuff. I think it's all part of the bigger picture. I don't know. I never did martial arts as a kid, and I sort of regret that in a way, I guess. So I've got my 10-year-old doing some martial arts, and I think that's I think it's a good thing to learn.
Yeah, I mean it is, but I'm not sure. Like realistically, I always find it really interesting when people kind of like get really good at things like jiu-jitsu and stuff like this. But you're not really. I mean, one of the first things they teach you is like not to engage. So it's
right.
The reason, when I was little, I did judo, and I think I did a bit of jiu-jitsu, and that was mostly for exercise really, and just kind of coordination. So, cause I'm like quite dyspraxic because I'm dyslexic. So, it's actually very helpful. And weirdly, my dad and I are very good at sports, or he's very good at sports and I'm all right. But, I'm good when I'm moving, but when I'm not moving, I'm like a very clumsy person. Yeah. So weirdly, anyway, sorry, that's complete.
So what about gaming? Tangent. How does that translate to?
Gaming's fine. But weirdly,
you're not moving when you're gaming. Gaming's fine.
Yeah, gaming's fine. So like I'm good with like very small movements. So I can do cooking and I mean, gaming's absolutely fine. But it's when I'm kind of like actually physically trying to do something like pick things up, or I'm just very clumsy. But if I'm running and like I'm having to think about what I'm doing, for some reason it kind of cancels it out. So I don't know why that is. I probably shouldn't.
It's like deep instinctive. Running is like your base primal like survival mechanism. Get away from the saber-toothed tiger.
Right, but in my case it was like with rugby. I mean, I could like throw the ball very accurately, or tackle people quite precisely, and all this kind of stuff. So but if I'm like trying to put up, I don't know, shelves, or change a light bulb or something, then it's just very like but gaming's weirdly fine. So I think it's very small precise movements, or model kit building, that kind of stuff. Though I'm not good at painting. I'm not. It's a bit too fine for me anyway.
I've always loved the painting.
Fingers.
I never did the model building, but when I was pretty young, I got into miniature painting.
Warhammer.
Like no, I never. Warhammer was like too expensive for me, so I just bought like the little pewter D&D figurines.
Oh, they're nice.
And, like,
those are nice.
Lord of the Rings. Actually, in 6th grade, I remember I got it. I'd been into painting for about a year, and I had a little figurine of like Gimli or something. I think it was one of the dwarves. Nice. And I entered it in a contest, and I actually won first place, and I was really pleased with myself. It was pretty exciting as a 11-year-old kid or whatever. But I don't think I ever entered another contest for painting. But I haven't done minis in a long time, and that's something I'd like to get my kids into, because it's kind of a Zen experience, just sitting there and like all that kind of hobbyist stuff. I think whether you're knitting or models or painting, like. That combination of like creativity and fine motor skills, and achieving something, even something kind of small, or I don't know. I think it's important. I mean, these days everything's so easy. People just get on their phones and play like some silly mobile game, or get on Instagram. I think like those little hobbies are important. They're kind of like tabletop games and things that engage your creativity.
I think tactile media is a really good description of it, and it is really. Like important. I mean, I've been following like the upsurge of Gundam model kit building in the States at the moment, because Bandai's doing a really big push for that, and it's fascinating to see that that's actually kind of more of a gateway into the anime and all the other kind of mythos is from the model kits, because people they buy a model kit they like the look of, and then they kind of see, okay, this anime could be really interesting. So, but that's kind of interesting. So, that's cool. And also gaming kind of fits into that in a way, because it's like. I mean, it's tactile media. So, but I'll stop. Yeah, because we had stuff to talk about, and kind of going all over the place.
No, ramble away. I think the fun of a podcast is just letting it take you where you go. But yes, we do. I mean, it's true. There's last time we talked about the Hogwarts Legacy stuff with Troy Leavitt.
Yes, with Troy Leavitt. Yeah.
Right. And this was the story that broke. So we talked about all this, and we speculated, and we talked. And then like the next day he came out with his video. Or maybe it was later that evening, where he really explained why. Yeah. And we were like, oh, well.
But it was pretty much what we expected, though. It was because everybody was,
to be fair.
Because everybody, it was like, they were saying this guy's, we've cancelled him. This is why he's leaving. No. He's leaving for personal reasons. It's completely got nothing to do with this. I mean, the guy's been around forever in terms of game development. So, the fact that he would be cancelled for stuff that his employer already knew about is just
right.
It's just
that whole thing was so brazenly ridiculous. I could believe it, but at the same time, I kind of couldn't believe it. Because it's one thing, you see maybe an article or two, and you're like, okay, whatever. Like this is typical game journalism in 2021, right? But then just how many articles there were, and then the articles saying like, he's running a con, he's gonna pivot into YouTube and Patreon and make a bunch of money off of all the outrage, and it's like, guys, have you watched his videos? Like, this guy's not going to make it big as a YouTuber and on Patreon. Like, why would he do that when he's got a nice cush producer job on this AAA game? Yeah. It was really quite, and his sort of video explaining everything was really, I thought was pretty great, because, he's a very calm guy, very collected. He talks about the reasons, and it had to do with his family, and he talks about, he'd already retired and now he's just re-retiring so he could go help some family member who was, having a hard time. Yeah. He addressed the whole thing not to the public at large, but to his coworkers who he was no longer going to be working with, which I thought was pretty classy. And then he did a little bit on journalism and the failures of journalism in his particular case, which
he was completely correct on.
He was absolutely correct. I don't know if any of the people who actually wrote about it, even bothered to watch that video, or whether they just,
more importantly, decided to amend their articles once the facts came out.
There were a couple, but a lot of them, I think, no.
Because the whole thing, like I said, like last time, I think the reason why it broke was it was kind of like a new sort of acolyte trying to get into the clique, trying to kind of show, I found fresh meat for you, and this is what we're going to destroy now. And
yes, a person. A person and their life and their livelihood, hopefully, the blood sport. Isn't it great?
But it's just, I don't understand. I mean, these are the people that are supposed to be sort of, standing up for, everyone. Have I just dropped them? Yeah. But no, they're supposed to be standing up for everyone. And yet they bully, bullying is somehow okay, which I don't really register and understand how that can kind of resolve itself. Because, I mean, from my standpoint, I'm left-wing. I mean, I voted Labour in Britain numerous times, much to the consternation of my family. But, I don't... I mean, I don't have a thyroid. I had it removed when I was 19. So in Britain, I had to rely on the National Health Service. So I understand the value of, socialised medicine. But, I thought that these people were... You're meant to be kind of compassionate, I assumed, if you're on the left. But these people are just... They're just nasty bullies. They just go after people. And I've actually kind of experienced it weirdly recently. I was kind of dogpiled on. And, I mean, it wasn't like... I wouldn't say a pleasant experience, but it was kind of... It felt really misplaced. Because I wasn't talking about anything, in remotely controversial or... in any way inaccurate, actually, because I was talking from my own personal experience across multiple jobs, and that just seemed to set, a certain vocal minority really off, and they thought it was totally okay just to go ad hominem and just go after me rather than what I was actually talking about. And I just thought, so there's no discourse, there's no discussion, there's no kind of to and froing of ideas, and it's just, you're wrong, shut it. And it's like, whoa, that's weird. And it kind of makes me feel...
Well, I think...
Yeah.
I think that, you said that, that you think you'd imagine the left to be compassionate because the left has traditionally fought for, equal rights and better pay and, healthcare and all these things. And you'd also expect the left to be sort of a place of free thought, free thinking, free, defenders of free speech and very, even, I don't agree with you, but I'll defend your right to say it. That kind of attitude. But all those things seem to have been replaced by this language policing, and it's a kind of bullying for sure. I saw you get dogpiled. And it was about, you were talking about the difference between like developers and testers. Yeah. And, I think you were making... Yeah. And I don't think you were, I mean, from my impression of it, and of course, I kind of like dipped my toes in and then I undipped my toes because there's only so many pools I can wade through, at any given time. But and personally, and of course, never having worked on a video game, I don't have a dog in the fight. But what I took you as saying is that, there is the development side where they actually build the game, all the people that actually
make stuff,
put it together. And then there's the testing side, which tests the game. And just like testing and development are separate because they have to be. Just like marketing and development are separate, or in journalism, just like editorial and marketing are separate. These parts of the business are separate and distinct for a reason. And I didn't really get the impression that you were saying like testers are subhumans or something, right? Like testers do an important job.
Tester.
Yeah, I know exactly, right? So.
I
And
don't
I'm
get
sure
it.
that many testers do move from that into development, and
Which I did.
sometimes move into management, and management then gets bought out, and they go live on the beach. So
Yes. That's actually pretty much the line you go.
that's how it goes. Yeah,
That's where you end up. You always end up on the beach, ideally.
on the beach, and then in a scandal, and then you're divorced, and she takes you for all you're worth. God damn it! Oh,
That's kind of the second story arc. But no, the whole thing.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no. So the whole thing with that, what I found really strange was like, what is so wrong with being a tester? What is so wrong with being someone who localizes games? Why is that not enough? Because from my standpoint, I mean, just to kind of give a whole I started as a tester in publishing at Electronic Arts, which was certification testing. So basically, you had to destroy a game in a few weeks before you submitted it to Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo. And I ended up as a senior tester pretty quickly on that because I was managing a team of people. And I never would have thought of myself as a developer. I was never making the game. I'm supporting the developer so they can get it through submission and released. And then 2 years later, I worked at a small developer. Officially, I was called an associate producer, but realistically, I was a tester. And I was basically helping the people making the game, like finding bugs as they were making it. So that's a very different kind of testing. But even then, I wouldn't have said I was a developer. I was helping the people that were developing it. And I remember there was a shift when I went from being a tester after like about a year into becoming a designer, because I actually had to design stuff on the games. And that was very different because I was actually going into the game and making changes to make it better, which was much more direct. I wasn't like a support function. I was actually doing it. So I remember very clearly, okay, so this is the difference. This is not the same. But all the experience I had from testing was obviously very useful because you learn how to break games and sort of iterate very quickly on how things are working.
Sure. So
it's not that I ever thought that testing was not valuable or that these people are not, necessary. Absolutely, they're necessary. But from my own personal experience, I was not a developer when I was testing. When I was designing, then that was something I was integrally involved in the making of the game. And I just kind of said all that because basically I think one of the reasons that probably I didn't give the best context was that in Japan there seems to be this like group of localization people that want to call themselves developers, and I really don't understand where this comes from. Because from my standpoint, like localization tends to happen at the publishing end, which is like really far removed from when the game's being made. What they're basically doing is the game's done at that point and then they translate it. But for some reason, localization here has a weird spin on it, which I don't understand, like why it needs to be that way. Because realistically, they're still doing it from a publishing standpoint. And they often want to call themselves developers. So that's where it kind of came from, because I keep on hearing this thing come up and up and up and up, up again. And especially when I have friends that are, localization people that don't do that. I was just like, why are these people doing it? What is so wrong?
Do you think it's like that being a game developer has a certain sexiness to it, or like mystique around it that people want to attach to themselves? I mean, I don't think in like reality that it is, but do you think there's sort of like,
because I never once felt that I became inherently sexier.
Do you think that in the software world, like people like who are programming, coding games specifically, there's always people who want to make games, right? Because games are sexy. Like there's something cool about making games. So you want to be, in game development as opposed to like working on, Microsoft Office or something, or, although probably working in that is probably a better job and you get less crunch than working in games.
And probably pays better.
So, and probably pays better and has more job security and all the rest.
Yes.
Hey, as reviewers, can we call ourselves developers? Can I do that now? Because I am an integral part of the game.
When does it end? When does it end? Oh God!
I thought maybe I should get into game consulting. Like become one of those consultants.
I mean, that's a different thing. Game consulting.
And then
but again,
then can I call myself a developer?
Not really. So
I'm kidding.
No. But I mean, going to consulting is fine. I mean, I know a few people that have done that and actually done it well. But again, they wouldn't call themselves developers either.
No.
So,
no.
At least the good ones, anyway. I mean, some of the consultants probably would. I think it's more about everybody wants to take credit for stuff they haven't done. I tend to find, And I'm not sure whether that's a sexy thing. I think it's more of a status thing.
Status, sexy, totally same difference in a lot of ways.
I see where you're coming from then. I think probably there is that element where they just want to be. I'm guessing they want to feel more important than they actually are. For me, it was always just I want to do something that I can kind of engage with, or that I can find interesting and spend my time doing, and everything else is kind of a byproduct, really. But I think the other things that happens a lot, maybe more in the States than it does in Japan, is that there's the real side to how games are made, and then there's kind of the PR side to how games are made, and the people that kind of get put into the limelight to promote games. And I think what happens is that it disproportionately sort of skews how games are made onto one person. And you and I both know that's just nonsense, because there is an army of people on most AAA games. And I mean, even on the indie games, I mean, when you have people like taking credit for the whole game, I mean, that sometimes there are genuine people who do that, who do make everything. But the ones that tend to do make everything aren't that loud and, arrogant. Right. But the ones that they're kind of busy. Right, exactly. I mean, and they're more kind of, it's partly they're too busy, but it's also that they're so, drilled down on trying to make it good and make it work. That they just don't have any other kind of room in their head for it. So,
they're usually working independently, and so they're not sort of thrown into the machine, into the cogs of like the corporate PR pub, because we've got, like look at Sony and how many or any of these, these celebrity game producers like Neil Druckmann or something, they get a lot of credit. They get a lot of blame. They probably don't deserve either, right? Like they deserve some credit. They deserve some blame, but really it's a huge team, and there's a huge publisher behind that. And there's a lot of executive decisions being made. And there's a lot of like moving pieces. So, Hideo Kojima is a great example of anher like
so he's
major celebrity developer, producer. I mean, you probably know more about that than me, but from what I've heard.
Yeah. No, he's like the anomaly in sort of the Japanese games industry in a way, because he is very PR, adept and focused, whereas most of the other sort of people who work in game dev are not as slick, and generally speaking, they don't take credit for everything in the same way that he does.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, my concern with Kojima is more about the way that he spends money. Which kind of then folds into the whole unsustainable AAA budgets nightmare, which is just kind of quietly.
This is one of your.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, this is one of your. No, this is one of your. And when we've talked, this is one of your. And I think it's an important one. I think it's one that's not. I mean, we hear. I'm glad that we're hearing more about crunch and whatnot, but we don't really see a lot of discussion or hear a lot of discussion about the unsustainability of AAA game development. And budgets.
The cost.
I mean, we don't hear about budgets because nobody talks about budget. No one talks about budgets. No one talks about sales. But, from what you've told me in the past, like this is a pretty big problem.
Yes. And I think the only kind of company that is actually trying to resolve the issue from a technical standpoint is Epic with Unreal Engine 5 and the way that they're dealing with how assets are used. So basically, I mean, there's actually weirdly a fantastically good article on Forbes from a good few years back breaking down why, games have got exponentially more expensive to develop. And it's mostly down to art resources, really. There are some other elements that do bump the costs up as well, obviously. But basically, the size of the teams and how long you have to develop for incurs a huge budget. And the thing with like in movies, I mean, it's kind of not quite as fair, but in movies, you tend to find out what the budget is and then how much it makes. So you can then kind of infer roughly, oh, it's been profitable. Oh, it's been a failure. In gaming, we only kind of get sales if we're lucky, and they're not consistent. But when it comes to budgets and sales, we don't get that. And I think it's partly because publishers, when they're getting loans and money from the money layer of the games industry, the fact that they don't disclose budgets makes it a lot easier to kind of pull down that kind of investment because everybody's not doing it. No one's kind of explained this is how much it really costs. But the scary thing is like in the past, 10, 15 years, we've lost hundreds and hundreds of developers because basically publishers offset the losses onto the developers who are living hand to mouth anyway on the milestone system. So, and again, no one's really talking about this. And whenever I kind of bring it up, it's just like, the elephant in the room, which nobody wants to acknowledge is ever there. And everyone kind of treats me like I'm some kind of weirdo. But yeah, I mean, because the thing is,
shaking your fist at the clouds.
Yeah, really, it does feel like I'm an angry old man shaking my fist at the sky. But I mean, I care about it because I care about games and I want those to kind of continue to exist. So I'm not super, happy about the way that big AAA budgets are going. I do kind of think though the Switch has kind of given us a bit of a respite, because obviously you can spend lots of money on the Switch, but there's no point graphically speaking. So I do actually think the Switch has given us a bit of a stay of execution maybe. But I am concerned that in the long run things are going to be crazy. But they already are terribly awful. But I mean, to the point that games physically can't be developed anymore for the kind of. I mean, there is, like, if they keep going down this route, it just will. I mean, it already is unsustainable, really. It's just we don't get to see that. And mobile games, a lot of these publishers are kind of making up the losses. I mean, I have a lot of very specific data on stuff that kind of backs this up. But again, I can't use it because whenever I try and get a source to go on the record, it's like, nope, not going to do it because they're terrified.
That's the gaming industry. Yeah. What about, you talked about Epic a little bit. When the Epic Game Store first launched, I heard from some game developers that it was pretty exciting for them, the new the cut, the 1288 cut versus the 3070 cut was the difference between laying people off and not laying people off.
Exactly.
And you also have Epic Game Publishing now too, which also has a much more equitable cut between the publisher and the developer, and including just better perks and better, a better treatment of devs. Do you think that like Epic has made it just piles of money on Fortnite and on the Unreal Engine, and it seems like they're doing good work with that money to make gaming just a little bit more sustainable and a little bit more compassionate towards developers? I mean,
yes,
is that...
That's very true. I mean, Tim Sweeney is probably one of the nicest and fairest people I've ever worked with. But, full disclosure, I used to work at Epic Games. The interesting thing that with Epic, though, is because obviously everybody used Unreal Engine 3 during the 360 PS3 generation. Epic kind of got like a really clear forewarning of where all the budgets were going, because obviously they were involved because people were using their engine. And I think they kind of took it upon themselves in a very kind of responsible way to kind of say, we need to figure this out in terms of, because the budgets aren't going to take care of themselves. Publishers are still going to go crazy. So we need to help from a tech standpoint and also from a publishing and platform standpoint. And the thing that I find really frustrating, especially about the Epic and Apple case, is because people don't know much about the reality of the back end of the games industry, especially publishing and how the platforms work. It looks like Epic is just being very petulant because there's no context for it. And what Epic is doing, I think, is hugely important, and doesn't just affect Epic and Fortnite on the App Store. No, it affects all of gaming for everyone, and they really absolutely have to win this, because if they win it, then
it's going to be hard.
Oh no! It's an impossible thing that they're doing.
It's David and Goliath is what they're doing. It's crazy. It's ballsy. You got to hand it to them.
It's ballsy, but it's also actually frighteningly necessary.
It is.
Because, I mean, what you're saying about, the 30% cut that platforms take in the case of Steam, I mean, that's pretty much industry-wide. Mm-hmm. And it's an enormous amount of your, revenue is gone. Right. And so when Tim was like, he's very fair. He understands what it's like to be a developer. And he comes from a development background. And he's just a very kind of fair person. So I'm glad that they're doing what they're doing in terms of the Epic Apple case, but I'm also glad so just to kind of explain when I said why Unreal Engine 5 is going to help, is so in like older engines and sort of general art creation, there are things called levels of detail. So when you have something up close, you get the full whammy. That's the most shiny version of the thing you're looking at. But when it's, let's say, I don't know, 100 meters away, you get kind of like an approximation of what it looks like. And each of those are different assets. Now, there are things where those assets are kind of, generated artificially and with like, programs and stuff. But generally speaking, it's the creation of all those assets is the time and the money that goes into, development. And when you have like a big open world game where you've got like mountains, trees, houses, and all this kind of stuff, it's incredibly expensive to develop all of that or create all of that art assets. So what's kind of amazing for Unreal Engine 5 and why it's so, important is not only is all the lighting kind of done dynamically, which saves an enormous amount of time, but it's also the fact that you just have one asset and then the game does the levels of detail for you, or the engine does the level of detail. So that on its own is a huge step forward and, a very important, cost-saving measure. Now, obviously, publishers, I think, go, yeah, but how shiny can we get it? And then they'll just go, but I actually think there is a limit to because you only have to make one really shiny asset rather than 15, right?
Right.
Of the same thing. So, and the more powerful the hardware gets, the more levels of detail you get, effectively, kind of. I'm kind of simplifying it a lot, but what they're doing is that Forbes article, which I can't remember who wrote it, but I think it was an ex-Valve or a Valve artist, basically broke it all down and in a really kind of clear, lovely way. And it's still really relevant today, even more so, because like with PlayStation 5, you can go completely nuts. And we'll get onto Demon Souls in a minute because I want to talk to you about it. But I do agree that, Epic they're doing the right thing in lots of different ways. I don't work for them anymore, but I wish them all the success in the world because they're the good guys as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I'm really impressed with what they've done with the success of their business. I mean, there's so many businesses take that success and they're just greedy. And it seems like all that they care about is just making more money. They don't care about their consumers. They don't care about their employees. They don't care about other companies. And, what you get from, and I understand that, the economy runs on competition, but there's also truth that the economy runs on cooperation as well. And what I love about Epic is that they really do believe that if they can make a fairer system for everyone, it will lift everyone up.
Yes, and it is, and that's the important thing. It really is doing that already. So,
and I really admire that.
That's not like a theoretical thing; it is actually happening.
Yes, no, I mean you see that with the Epic Game Store, and they're just getting they're just getting started with all of that. So I really do hope that we see. I do hope that we see a victory in court for them because that will have ripple effects to all of the platform holders and really how can they justify the 30% cut? They just have a store that they maintain and they have some servers that they maintain and they Apple keeps its terms of service and its rules and then they just walk away with so much money while everyone else creates all of the product. And it just and Valve, I like Valve, and I think Steam's a great store in some ways, and a terrible store in others. And I think that really Valve has been a source of good in the industry overall. But again, I think that Epic is going to continue to push them in a better direction as well. Even Gabe Newell has said that this kind of competition is healthy. So it's all in all, this is one bright light in video games, and I don't regret spending so much money on Fortnite skins.
No. I mean, I think there's also a lot of really good stuff that, they've used that money on Fortnite in a really kind of beneficial way to lots and lots of other people outside of Epic. I mean, they have things like Epic Mega Grants where they're, literally giving money away to help, developers get, up to speed or, people try out, do, new things. And I think that's a really noble thing to have done. What other company does that kind of literally, they're grants, they're giving money to, creative people. So I do think it's right. Cool. It's this cooperative approach, like competition and cooperation. I think it's a mix of both. And
you
I
need
think,
both. Yeah.
you absolutely need both. Otherwise, there's nothing left. If it's just competition, it's just a wasteland. And this is the thing about game development is that, if these studios keep shutting down, you're losing talent. And a lot of this sort of creative expertise is now just completely gone by the wayside. And that, I feel, is because it's not so simple in terms of like all the competition. Like you say, well, if someone competes and that person is better, then that studio is better. And it's not that straightforward, because you have people. The studio is made up of an enormous variety of people in terms of competence and ability, and how they work together as a team is how the game ends up. But just because necessarily a game is not as good doesn't mean the people on that team are, or some of those people on that team aren't amazing. You don't know the makeup.
Right, and some games are, it doesn't even necessarily mean like as good, right? Like some games are just less popular, and not because they're not as good. Maybe they're way better.
Titanfall 2. Oh my god!
Oh my god! At least Respawn has. I mean, that's another developer I really admire. I think they've done really great stuff, and they've survived the EA menace. Somehow.
The EA menace, yes. Well, the new EA menace. What's it?
EA has, I think, maybe improved also over the years, thanks to some pressure and feedback. But I think another thing also is that these large publishers will acquire studios, and then some of them they'll shut down and they'll say, well, all of the people, we're not laying off anybody, they're all moving to other teams. Okay, great, that's good, but you've lost the studio. And there was something in that studio that was special, that once you break it into a bunch of different parts is lost,
Yes.
And even when you don't break up the studio, you can look at someone like... No, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. No, so I mean, the thing is, it's like a studio in itself evolves as well, because people come and go. And the team that was there, let's say, on one game is not necessarily the same team that was on, let's say, the follow-up. And I think that, Respawn's an interesting one because they're good at kind of retaining people. But you're right. I mean, when you kind of, it's like, how do I explain? This is one of the things that I find crazy when you get these big agencies like CAA grabbing people and then setting up a studio around them. Like they pull out like a creative and then build a studio around them. It's like you've got this beautiful watch, and what you're doing is you've taken a hammer to it and taken out a really big cog, and then you're building another watch in a really kind of haphazard way around that. And and you wonder why it doesn't work so well.
Right,
but
because
you're right.
You might take a creative person from a studio and they're very creative and they're good at what they do, but when you try to build a new studio around them, maybe they're just terrible at the business side of things. Or or managing teams or whatever else it may be. And so then you get, they look no further than Amazon, and it's game, it's game failures. They've gotten lots of talent and they've thrown that talent at games and a bunch of money, but talent and money are not enough to just create good games. I mean, there is something that the organic factor of teams that naturally grow up around an idea, people who've worked together for a long time, people that share similar ideas and ambitions or knowledge, people complement each other's skills. You can't, it's just like you can't necessarily take musicians from a bunch of different bands and put them in a super band and have a great band. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Or like a movie, you can't just take a bunch of celebrities, toss them all in a movie together and make it a good movie. Just, it still needs to have, the writing, the direction, the producer. There's so many elements that go into all of these things that just focusing always on the talent it's just not going to work. I mean, that should seem more obvious, but I feel like I think there's this obsession with like the image or with the, again, this goes back to the Hideo Kojima thing or whatever, like
it's the great man myth.
It's like the great man myth. There you go.
It's I don't know why this thing won't die. I don't know where it, I mean, I know exactly where it comes from actually. But yeah, it's the great man myth, but it's just frustrating in modern industries, even in movies, where everything is so collaborative and team oriented, and yet somehow, this destructive focus on singular, individuals that are responsible for everything, I just find just maddening. And one of the things that, I mean, at least it's kind of in a small little way, but whenever I interview people in anime and games here, I'm always struck by how magnanimous they are and how they kind of talk about the overall. And when you interview different people from the same team, you get to get more of a picture of how everybody interacts, and you realize, oh, it's the sum of its parts. It's not just this one dude. So, it's the great man myth. It's just nonsense. And I don't know why. I know where it comes from, but I don't know why it still persists so perniciously.
Yeah.
Like this real desire that you must be this like one person, and it's just,
Well, it seems to transcend political and cultural lines in America, specifically, or in the West, I should say. Like that,
it's
it doesn't matter if
Western
you're,
thing.
it doesn't matter if you're like a bootstraps conservative, or if you're like a woke lefty. It seems like everybody has this sort of hero worship complex, and this like need to be like powerful and independent. I mean, you see all the memes, like the like girl power memes and stuff, and it's like, okay, it's you don't always have to be talking about how powerful and like individualistic and awesome and badass you are. Like that, first of all, if you're talking about it, you probably aren't those things. Because if you're actually confident badass, like you don't need to talk about it.
You don't need to talk about it. Yeah.
Second of all, like we all rely on each other. Like we've lost this sense of like of collective and communal support in so many ways. And we the internet hasn't helped. Social media hasn't helped with all this. But the fact of the matter is it's hard to go it alone. Like it's so much easier if you have a team. And and I know this because I do all my shit alone. And I don't have a team, and that's tough. Like I don't, I make my videos and I edit my videos and I do all my own, my own artwork or, all that stuff. And and all my writing and all my editing and I don't have, an editor going over my copy. And so like after a while, it can get kind of exhausting, and you sort of think, wow, this would be a lot more fun also if I had a team to work with. And teams are great. I mean, teams can be frustrating. Coworkers can be frustrating. Family can be frustrating. But my God, like this idea that we are successful based on our own individual merits is crazy. Like we succeed because there are so many levels to society that are helping. I mean, really, really rich people are only rich because taxpayers help build roads and infrastructure and, work for them. Jeff Bezos isn't going to be able to send out all those packages by himself,
Right. So this is the other thing this is another thing that I love, like a pet thing that I always kind of wrap around in my head. No, it's that what is it? The comment that Oliver Wendell Holmes made, which is taxes are the price you pay for a civilized society.
Yeah.
Which I love. But the thing that I really find interesting is that when you have all these billionaires saying, well, I did it, I did it all on my own and I've earned all this. And it's like, okay, then don't use any of the national infrastructure. Don't use, people that have been educated nationally, people that don't rely upon water that has been, distributed, through a, tax paid national infrastructure. And the thing that I find very interesting is that it's the lack of acknowledgement for how much the mixed economy helps the extremely wealthy, and how damaging it is.
It helps them the most.
Yes, and when the extremely wealthy don't pay back their dividends into back into tax, how much money they make back into tax, they're actually actively hurting the infrastructure that helps them, which is again I find remarkably short-sighted. And what I find interesting is that people don't look past a few layers of cause and effect. So, for example, like if you want to explain, the roads are, like you mentioned, those are paid for by taxes, as is water, as is a lot of the telecommunication networks, as are education, which is, you need people to read, write, and understand mathematics, right? Just basic stuff.
Yeah.
And then when you say, well, when you kind of link all those together, people don't see it because it's not like a one-to-one relationship. But it's actually this distributed infrastructure, which is incredibly important. And what I find really interesting, living from being in the UK to living in Japan is like, it's like natural disaster island, right? Because you've got tsunami, you've got volcanoes, you've got earthquakes. And the thing that has kept the nation sort of alive for thousands of years is this emphasis on sort of communal and the communal sort of helping each other, and the importance of, a very robust infrastructure that you invest heavily into. Because when an earthquake happens, that's what you rely upon to bring everything back together again. And I think because
or
other
like
countries,
COVID-19,
right,
a pandemic.
right.
Look at the difference in Japan.
Yes, right. I mean, and that's a really good example. Like, yes, they've coped with it generally really well. And that's not from like a governmental edict that was telling people to behave. It's just people are used to natural disasters and understand that we're stronger together and everything has to be kind of managed together. So, yeah, no, that's a very good example. Yeah, but the whole tax thing just drives me nuts when I sort of see, billionaires especially just taking so much and then just not paying anything back. And it's just like, hang on a second, that's just really not going to work in the long term. But never mind.
Yeah, it is short-sighted. I think that's the best way to put it, because it can't. It's not sustainable. First of all, it's having very super wealthy individuals who have built their fortune on these massive corporations. There is no way that is going to be a sustainable future for a country. Like, you need to have a broad middle class with lots of upward mobility potential for people, and that as technology replaces jobs, as all these huge changes happen, like the importance of having some way to lift people up in order for just the functioning of the economy and society to continue becomes so much more. I mean, it's always been important, but this resistance to that by like the business community, by the super rich, it just feels feels misguided. Like,
and I think it's becoming more and more apparent. I mean, that's one of the things social media is not good in some ways, but in other ways, I think it's very helpful in shining a light on a lot of things that were previously kind of hidden by the old media landscape. I think that how do I explain this? So I always love the description of when, like, the telephone was invented, everybody thought, oh no, this is an evil thing of technology, you'll never be left alone. And the thing is the technology itself is not inherently evil, it's how it's used. So yes, you could use it to ring your mum, but you could also use a mobile phone to set off a bomb somewhere. So it's the same technology, it's just how it's used. And I do feel that there's a lot of demonizing of social media, and there is definitely this kind of unhealthy, it kind of enables bullying and reputational destruction in a very, very kind of conveniently well-packaged way, which I think is unnerving. However, I think there's a lot of good that also comes from it in terms of like showing what's actually happening. And also, I'm just going back to the kind of the weird social media bullying thing. Whilst, getting dogpiled, it's always like actually just a really vocal minority. And that's something that I think social media is showing up as well, because you can see how many people are doing it like real time. And then you see the vast majority that are just kind of going, no, not really. So I find that really healthy in a way. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, totally. But, so Demon Souls, I know you've been wanting to talk about this.
Yes, because you're a Souls.
Did you say you platinumed that?
Yeah.
Did you that's impressive. I wish I had that. I don't know. I don't ever allow myself enough time to play video games these days, but that's impressive. Did you platinum it originally in the PS3 version?
No, I didn't actually, because it annoyed me. No,
it has some annoying things about it.
No, because the original game, the biggest annoyance, and I think the biggest improvement over the remake, is that when you were basically full of like all the items you could carry, that was it. And you had to drop stuff to pick something else up. Whereas now it automatically gets sent back to your, storage. So you can just constantly build up your materials. And the materials are really important because that's how you upgrade your base weapons. And the base weapons are actually some of the best in the game once they're fully upgraded. So that actually has a dramatic improvement on like the flow of the game and the actual kind of, I actually want to kind of resource hunt. I need to get these resources. Getting these resources is useful, which is the original game didn't allow for that. So, and the other thing that I did, that even though it's not technically a part of any of the trophies because it's like a secret thing, is I also did the whole crazy quest to get the penetrator armor set, which is
That's pretty cool.
that's just, whoever came up with that deserves to be like stabbed in the face, because it's just an absolute bastard to do, because you have to change the world tendency from pure black to pure white, and you also have to play it in fractured mode, which is like mirrored, which messes with your head. So like you know a level really well, and then it's just like flipped, and you're going, oh, my brain, and it's not good. And then you have to find these bloody ceramic coins, and once you get them, but I will say that one good thing about it is once you get all like 26, I think, and you get the rusted key is a permanent. It carries over to every new game.
Oh, that's good. So you don't have to do it again.
Because all the other keys don't do that. It's just that one key that does. So when you do get and the penetrator armor set is really good. It looks really awesome. It looks much cooler than it actually is. But no, I really like. So the platinum stuff. I think what was the hardest one? The hardest one I think was the 2 online ones, because I actually had to get a friend to help me. Because it's like you have to help defeat a boss, or you have to kill someone when you're a Black Phantom. And basically, I'd leveled up so much by that point that there was no way I was ever going to meet anyone online of my level. So I just said, okay, just because if you have a friend, it doesn't matter about your level. There can be a disparity.
Yeah.
And he'd actually had a really big trouble with, I think, the Flame Lurker boss. So I just turned up with my like ridiculous character and went, "You are dead," and just killed it for him.
That's nice.
And he was like, "Oh my god! Like, how much damage did you just do?" And it's like, "Yes, look away, look away."
Well, you know, I've always said that summoning is the de facto easy mode in the Souls games. You know, people always say, "Oh, we need an easy mode. We need an easy mode," and it's like, well, summon people.
Yeah,
that's your easy mode.
That's how it works. And you actually, I'm a masochist probably, but I didn't do any online stuff at all. I just played it purely offline, the whole thing.
Yep.
And the only last 2 things I did was that last thing with my friend. But yeah, no, I mean, you're right. That makes it a lot easier. One thing I will say about Souls is I do actually find the remake a lot better in terms of messaging for like when you mess up, because the PS3 version was a bit sketchy on that. And to be honest, I'm not the hugest fan of Souls in that regard, because like the messaging is kind of all over the place. But the new remake for Demon Souls is really well. They've gone a lot into the animation and really kind of thought things through. It's very well done. So how far are you on through it, by the way?
I'm not very far at all. I am really, I have just, this year, I have just sort of played a lot of Call of Duty. I don't know. I've had this goal to get Warzone and mostly Black Ops Cold War lately. Like, I've just had this ambition to get good at it, like kind of like I did with the Souls games at one point, where I wanted to get really good at these games, and I got really good at them, and I beat them, and like beating Dark Souls for the first time was awesome. Beating Demon Souls for the first time was awesome. Bloodborne, all this sense of achievement. And now, like, I've just been kind of, partly because I've played with my kids and partly because I've got a group of buddies that we play together. And it's just kind of like that social aspect has been really fun. But I need to do that. I need to play more Demon Souls, and I need to play some of these other new games that have come out. Like Returnal is a pretty cool game.
Oh, yeah.
You played that yet?
No.
It's really neat.
I've been eyeing that up.
Yeah, I think you'd like it. I mean, it's really interesting. It's very dark, and I've played for a couple hours, and it's a really unique. It's got a really unique flow to it. I think you'll dig it. It's it's not like a Souls game, but it's got that sort of feeling of like it's sort of evocative, like ruined
That's a very From Software
landscape.
Thing,
yeah, it's got that feel to it. The gameplay is totally different. It's very challenging, and it's kind of stressful. But it's a roguelike. So the levels change up each time, but there are similar. They don't change up entirely. You will go into areas that are the same. They're just different orders, and they have a really cool enemy design.
They look cool. I saw the trailers for that, and I was like, looks really nice.
There's not boring enemies in this game, which I really like. But sometimes there's really huge spikes in difficulty, which stress me out. I'm like, that was just killed me immediately. I got to start over. And that's part of the fun of it, And there's been some really great roguelikes lately. Oh God, what was that one that was so popular last year? Hades.
Hades? Yeah.
Yeah, that was a great game.
Did you enjoy that?
I did enjoy that. Yeah, I didn't finish it. I didn't play enough. See, this is my problem. I have had like this I have been incapable of finishing games lately. I have like gamer's block or something. And maybe it is just because I focused a lot more on multiplayer. Because for a long time, I focused on single player games. And I guess there just came this point where I was like, you know what? I want to get good at these. I want to be competitive.
I think
and
Fortnite, because
Fortnite was right. I started playing that a lot.
Yeah.
I wanted to win. I wanted to get a victory royale. And I started doing that. And I was like, yeah, all right. And then gunfight in Call of Duty. I don't know if you've ever played that, but that 2v2 mode. It's so good. It's really elevated Call of Duty from like a mindless, like people running around, sliding around, shooting each other to this like intense tactical 2v2. Everyone has the same guns. Everyone has the same equipment. There are no kill streaks and people don't run around like crazy. They communicate and you have 60-second rounds. It's really good. And that I think got me into that. So,
that's a lot like Gundam Extreme Versus, the way that you have 2v2 and it's really tactical. So, I mean, because the thing is like,
cool.
Yeah, no, I mean, you should check that out as well. Gundam Extreme Maxi Boost on the PS4. If you like 2v2 tactical games, doesn't matter if you like Gundam at all. The whole setup for that is amazing. It doesn't matter. Seriously, cool. I mean, Gundam's like, as a game, it doesn't matter. If anything, it'll introduce you to cool stuff. But the thing for me is that, things like Fortnite and Call of Duty is because that's kind of out of my Japanese gaming remit. That stuff tends to, skim past me. Yeah, so if it's a Japanese game that I have to cover, then I tend to kind of see that stuff. So I'm a bit out of the loop on sort of a lot of Western development. Yeah. Though I do play Call of Duty a bit, especially the single player stuff. So
I when I was younger, when I first got into PC building, it was around the time of like Elder Scrolls Oblivion and Half-Life 2 and those games. But then I really got pulled into Counter-Strike and Team Fortress 2 and those games. So I used to play very competitive shooters on PC. Then I kind of got out of that for a long time. And now I feel like I'm kind of like, well, I don't play Counter-Strike because every time I get into that game, I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like people just running around and I just die right away. And I'm like, okay, never mind. But, Overwatch,
because it used to be a lot more tactical,
strategic.
That's what I liked.
Yeah, it was very tactical, and now and I like games
slow,
like that. Like the
and
original.
It was quite, you weren't like jumping around, and you were actually. No, I used to play Counter-Strike a lot on PC.
Yeah, it was so fun back in the day, and it's not the same anymore. It's kind of sad, actually. I think that's another sign of Valve kind of like going for money rather than for quality, and I don't know, like
I think it's the pernicious effect, the effect of like battle royale where everything is just a mosh pit, and there's no kind of like appreciation of tactics and strategy and how you kind of build a level in a kind of a more thoughtful way. It's just like, well, here's the choke point, have fun, and it's just like,
that's true. Yeah, and that's why I do enjoy gunfight in Call of Duty. If you get a chance to play that, Warzone, you've played Warzone, so
yeah.
So in the Gulag where it's 1v1, when you die and you can get a chance, that's like gunfight, but it's 2v2. Yeah. And they've got small maps, like the Gulag is one of the maps in gunfight. So just picture that, but with the first team to 6. So we've had, and I play with my kids a lot. They love that. So where the other team's ahead 4-0, and then we come back and we win it 6-5, and like it's a very fun experience. And I guess I've just been drawn into that and not focused as much on all these other games I should be playing, and I'm gonna play Demon's Souls. Damn it! I will say one thing that annoys me about Demon's Souls.
Demon's Souls. Damn it! Okay.
I just prefer the Estus Flask system in Dark Souls so much to the stupid grass system, and it's same in Bloodborne with the blood vials. I just prefer, but at least in that game you had that retake or regain system where you could, if you jumped in fast enough, you could get some health back by getting a hit on an enemy.
Right.
You remember that? Right. That was a cool mechanic that it rewarded precise yet aggressive play. Like Bloodborne really changed. Yeah. It really changed the flow of the Souls games, which were very much like defensive.
Yes.
Watch your stamina, watch your, get your shield up or whatever however you play. Whereas, in Bloodborne, they have the weak ass wooden shield that's kind of making fun of that style of play. And you really want to play that aggressive, like counter, jump in, jump out, and I really loved that. Did you play Sekiro?
Yes, no, I mean I thought that was very good as well. So
That didn't have an easy mode. You couldn't summon people in it. That game was freaking hard, dude.
Yes,
I never finished that game. That is the one Souls game that I just was like at a certain point I was like, I don't think I have time for this game anymore. Like I just got too frustrated. And
what about Neo? You enjoyed
shame.
the Neo games, didn't you?
I liked Neo, yeah. I didn't finish the Neo games either. I played quite a bit of the first one, but I didn't get very far in the second one. I do
Those
need to
were
play
quite
it more.
tough too.
They're very tough. I don't, there are things I don't like about them as much. Like I love in Souls that every weapon is unique and you don't just find like a better broadsword and then a better broadsword and then a better broadsword and then like you're not constantly fiddling with loot. Like you find a weapon, you get the the Balder side sword and you're like, yeah, I'm going to upgrade this sword and I'm going to play with this sword the rest of the game and I'm going to find other weapons and kill a couple bad guys with them. But then I'm going to go back to my weapon. But in Neo, it's like more of the Diablo style loot where you're constantly finding, and that, I don't know, like that aspect of the game. I mean, I thought they were very good games. Not to the level of Souls, but still very entertaining and fun and challenging.
No, I totally hear you on the Estus Floss thing. I mean, I will say this, though. You can farm the grasses quite quickly, so you don't have to worry about it. I mean, when you do start out, it is a bit annoying relative to the Estus Floss. I do actually think the Estus Floss setup was better in Dark Souls than what they did for Demon Souls. So I totally agree on that. But it becomes less of an issue the more you play.
Yes, absolutely. Once you get to
the big advantage,
to the Tower Knight,
yes.
Sorry,
once you get to the Tower Knight, what I was going to say is that when the grasses start to get more powerful, and you don't need many, and you can just like refill your entire health. That is really cool. So, but I was going to say, if you want, and I'm happy to help because I've got everything that I can.
I should do
that. We should do that.
That would be fun. I'll hit you up when I have a sense of when I'll play.
Just out of curiosity, what character did you go with when you started?
What did I choose this time? I think I chose the knight.
Okay.
Because I like the knights the best. Just because I like the way they look. Seriously, it's a weird thing with me, but when I play like Dark Souls, I love the knight set or the elite knight set. And I just feel like I'm a knight. I feel like I'm like cosplaying or like, like, I don't know. It's such good armor. It's such cool, like classic armor that I just like rolling around with that build. Although I have played Dark Souls like as a barbarian build with no upper armor, like Conan style, and as a monk, and all these. But the knight with the fluted armor is just such.
That's the classic armor as well.
The classic Demon Souls, But yeah, I need to get back into it. The last time I played on the PS3, I fired it up and I started playing and I killed 4 bosses without dying once, and I was like, what the hell is going on? Like I was on fire. But this time when I fired it up on PS5, I was like dying and I'm like, am I just getting too old for this shit? I don't know. Probably not. I'm just probably rusty, but man, it was brutal.
Yeah, I mean, were you a knight on the PS3 version?
I think so. I don't know. I often will like ditch a couple pieces of armor I like just to get the speed to where I need it to be. So I keep like what I can, and then I'll fiddle with it until I can dodge quicker, roll quicker.
It's the 50% under the 50% like equip. That means you can do the quick roll. Otherwise, you do the fat roll. You just go.
Yeah, and it's just no good. No, in Dark Souls, you can get like Havel's Ring and like all the different things so you can get really pretty quick and it's a pretty clunky game. They both are pretty clunky, but in like kind of a good way. There's like this weight to that you kind of, like in Dark Souls 3, it's so much smoother and slicker. And I kind of miss the clunkiness of the earlier games that kind of like
the weight.
I don't know.
That comes from
that's charming.
They have that comes from their mecha games. That is because Armored Core, Metal Wolf Chaos, it's all about sort of the weight of the mecha. So you have to kind of take that into account in terms of your movement and combat. And I really think that compared to Kingsfield, which didn't really mess around with this too much, and even Shadow Tower, but when it moved into the Souls, they kind of really brought that over. And I think there were lots of like customization elements that were in Demon Souls that were really, 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 really strongly from Armored Core. So I thought that was kind of, I'm waiting for when they do a new one, but they're not going to. It's just never going to happen anyway.
Yeah, now they're pretty into the Souls, the success of that, and we've got
Elden Ring.
Chain or Elden Ring, yeah, Elden Ring there somewhere in the future.
I mean, I know they are working pretty much flat out on Elden Ring now, so it is definitely happening. It's just Corona has delayed it.
Sure, and I'm kind of enjoying the relative silence on it. It keeps things mysterious and exciting, and I think it'd be really cool if they just like one day released a launch trailer and they're like, it's coming out next week. Everyone would lose their minds, right? That would be so cool.
I think that's pretty much what they're going to do, and it'll be like literally like, here's the game, and then like a month later it's out.
Because we get too many. I've written about this, but sometimes we get just way too many trailers, and it's like it's still 8 months out. Here's a trailer, and then here's like an interview with the developer with some more footage, and like here's the story trailer, here's a cinematic trailer, here's a friggin' multiplayer trailer, and here's 20 screenshots, and here's an IGN first preview, and it's like, okay, well, I'm not excited about the game anymore. I just want, that's why I liked Respawn's Apex Legends launch. They were like, boom, here's the game, and everyone's like, what? Cool.
Yeah.
I would like to see something like that with Elden Ring.
Why? Because I kind of missed the thing, but there was like a huge uptick in Titanfall 2 online gaming. What was that to do with Apex? Because I thought you might know about that.
I think partly because they did do some lore integration, but I think, and it's also because it came to Steam finally. But that was a while ago. I think it just has been building momentum on Steam for a while. Because it's such a great game, and that opened it up to so many new gamers. The single player
in that is absolutely fantastic.
Yeah. Dude, that's just one of the few
level design
games
and oh god, yeah.
It's one of the only games I've given a 10 out of 10 to. Because I thought the campaign was brilliant. It reminded me, a little bit of Half-Life 2. It was very innovative. It was, the right length and a great mix of like the mecha and the pilot gameplay, and then a good story, nothing too crazy, but like a good story with a nice connection between the mech and the main character, and then great multiplayer. I mean, I was never really great at that multiplayer. I was fine, but you see some people play that multiplayer, and it's like they can fly. It's like they're just like flying through levels, spinning around, shooting people backwards, and then turning. Like it's like it's like a ballet. It's like watching this crazy like mecha shooter ballet, and it's the skill that some people can have and that they put to use in that game is really remarkable. It's so sad that game didn't make so much money when it released between Call of Duty and Battlefield.
Yeah, it was a stupid thing. Yeah, I know. I mean, just thinking about it now, it's just like, how could you? And
it was a better game than either of those. Like it was Infinite War, or it was Call of Duty. Which Call of Duty was it? It wasn't as good as Titanfall 2. Was it Advanced or was it? It might have even been.
Was that the one where you kill Kevin Spacey? I can't remember. I think that was.
It might have been that one. That was a fine game, I guess. I don't know if that was that year. I can't remember. Either way, it was a better game, and it did not get the love it deserved.
Yeah. The only thing I love Titanfall 2. I mean, I love all the way they handled the mecha. I love I love the way they handled the visual element of the mecha and the character. But the thing that I always found from a functional standpoint was that I always felt the on-foot pilot stuff was a lot more fun and interesting than the mecha stuff, because the mecha just felt like so all this cool movement and stuff I can do, I'm now just not doing any of that, and it's just
Oh yeah, wouldn't it have been cool if like your mech could move like the pilot could move, like if the mech could run on walls and do all that fun stuff, and you were just in this like way bigger, like still super hyper mobile.
They showed that on some of the press things with the mecha and the pilot running across and then BT 7274 like running behind him. I was going, yes, and then no, we're not going to do this. No, you just get into a mecha and it's like, dun,
you're right.
Dun, dun, dun. I mean,
never mind. 0 out of 10. Do not play this game.
No, I'm not saying that.
It's terrible. It's a betrayal.
The mecha. No, I think what was nice about that was the kind of the juxtaposition of like the sheer firepower discrepancy, and then you really do feel like that's the purpose of the Titans. This is what they bring to the battlefield, and I think the way they did that. But the stuff I loved primarily was the amazing level design, like the way you walk through levels. Just like it kind of went from just doing the initial like wall running and everything, and then taking that up a few notches, and then they have the time travel, which was just like, oh my god, I can flip between times, which I thought plus the wall running.
That was
and I
cool.
thought
That was cool.
Insane.
Yeah. That was insane. That level was great. Yeah.
That's like two levels happening at the same time. That's just ingenious level design.
Yeah.
And I just love that.
That
and they
reminds me,
kept introducing. Yeah.
No, go ahead. Keep going. You kept
they kept on like just introducing all these kind of groundbreaking ways to handle, first person shooter level design. And it's just like fucking tumbleweed. Like nobody looked at it. It was just
and we don't have Titanfall 3, and we may never. I mean, I felt so hopeful for a minute after that game came out that like the next one would be, they would just keep expanding on these cool concepts and cool level design and innovative, everything just felt so fresh. And as
which
much
is amazing
as I think
for a first person shooter, but
amazing for any game these days in so many ways. But as much as Apex Legends is a great battle royale game that I'm really bad at, I've won that one time, and it was when me and my son played a duos match, and I saw, we were just hanging out and looting, and like I saw the circle coming in, and it came in over the water, and there was like a peninsula here, and then a strip of land here, and then water. And I was like, let's position ourselves on this peninsula over here. So we went up there and we hung out, and we waited, and we were watching people fight, and the circle came in more, and it was on our peninsula, but not on that strip of land over there. And the remaining people just died. We didn't get a single kill. We just hung out until everyone was dead, and we won. That's our only win. It was amazing. We're like, okay, cool. We didn't even shoot at anybody. Like, what we did, we started clock shots, but we didn't hit anybody. Like, we didn't kill anybody.
That's amazing.
That's the only time I've won, and it was so funny. We're just like, oh, okay, cool. We won.
Yes.
We're the winners. But, I think like I am still sad. I hope that Respawn is able to take some of that Apex money or success and turn it into a Titanfall 3 that's properly marketed, released like in June or something when no other big games are released.
Yeah.
And just is another awesome, maybe improve the mechs.
Yeah, well, no, it's not the designs. I thought the designs were fantastic. It's
the
more
movement.
It's like, what do you do? Like, I mean, apart from just being, I'm a walking tank. I mean, it never felt like. I mean, with the pilot, there's a special thing to its movement, right? Whereas with the mecha, there was nothing kind of unique about the movement. It's just a bit heavier, and you got bigger guns, and you can't do as much, which is kind of
it's
a bit
useful,
weird.
but
yeah. I mean,
I never enjoyed that part of the game as much as the other stuff. And I think that's probably definitely the place where they could improve the most. Yes. Because there's no reason it couldn't be a really awesome part of the game. Like when you're in a mech, it should be freaking awesome, right? Like it should be the most awesome part of the game. So maybe they'll do that. That would be sweet. Certainly the improvements. Well, just the fact that Titanfall 2 had a campaign, Titanfall 1 didn't. That was awesome.
Yeah.
And I think that, given the right resources and time and everything, I think they could, I think they would probably improve all those things, but we'll see.
Yeah. I mean, it'd be nice to see that. But it's just like, having played like other mecha games generally, it's just that a lot more work goes into how those, like you said, that they're awesome. That's the whole point. So the fact it didn't do that was just kind of a bit... But I love the
that one game. Do you remember that game Hawken? Do you remember that PC game Hawken? What happened to that game? That game was like all the rage for a little bit, and then just disappeared.
Well, because this is the thing. So that was a really smartly developed Unreal Engine 3 game that was originally going to be like a single player with a bit of a multiplayer indie game for 360, I think. And then what happened was it got a really bad publisher that just wanted to take all it free to play and PC only. And then the whole free to play thing was pay to win, and that just kind of killed it off pretty much straight away, because it's like you had this really interesting idea for a mecha game, and then it just kind of fizzled out. Because this is the thing about mecha games. It's actually this. Well, just generally with any kind of shooting game, you need the single player. Everyone's focusing on battle royale at the moment, and Fortnite's doing very well with not having really kind of a single player, which is fine. But that doesn't mean that everything's going to be like that. And I think they're kind of learning this the hard way. And this is generally what happens in game publishing in general is like there's a game type that's successful and then everything copies that. And then everything else that copies that doesn't do as well. And they go, okay, we shouldn't do that. Let's go back and do what we know already. So, and that's kind of very much publisher down, right? It's not the developers that are like going, let's make a battle royale. No, it's always like the publishers that come up with that.
Right.
So, I think that, so Hawken got hit by that. And then you got things like MechWarrior Online, which got hit by the same kind of thing because everybody loves MechWarrior, right? But, that was like, again, pay to win, and it was a free-to-play game, and that kind of killed it off. And then the next game that's actually, they're now trying to build it back up with things like MechWarrior 5, which is excellent. But because they've had this free-to-play thing that kind of went against what the people were expecting, and pretty much the series as a whole hasn't done that before, that kind of harmed it. So... yeah, and then Heavy Gear as well. They try to go down the free to play route. That killed it off pretty much before it even started. And then you got the battle.
Free to play is tricky.
No,
it's not tricky to do it right.
When it's a service, this is the thing, and it's very difficult to get that right. And you have to constantly update what you're doing. I mean, this is why you have all the seasons in Fortnite, is because you're effectively reinventing. You're actually, everyone says, "Oh, you make so much money, you only have to make one game, and then it." Just brings you money. No. You never finish. You're constantly developing a game. And yes, you're making a ton of money as it's happening, but you're spending a ton of money to get there. Mm-hmm. It's not like the best, it's not like, oh, let's do free to play. We'll just make all the money in the world and we can just wear clothes made of money. No, there's a lot more to it. And it's not an easy thing to do. And it doesn't always work with certain game types and certain, series, especially because I think when you try and change a series that wasn't historically like that into something like that, that's always going to cause problems because that's not like the sort of the functional lineage that people are, that's because I think with games, because they are, like I said, tactile media, because they're things you play, there's kind of a much stronger connection when things like fundamentally change with that. Because then you actually feel it a lot more than, let's say, you would see like a reboot of Spider-Man, for example, as a movie. Mm-hmm. But with a game, I remember, was it when they did the first-person version of Syndicate, right? And Syndicate is this amazing kind of tactics game on the PC, the original one with the 4 little cyborgs, and you walk around, it's a shooter. But it's quite a tactical, interesting shooter, and you have to build up all your characters and stuff. And then they just turned it into kind of like Cyberpunk the shooter. And that just died because it's just a huge shift away from what people remember functionally. And the attachment is this kind of tactile attachment. So when you change stuff like that, it's actually really bad. And free to play, it makes sense that with Fortnite, they did their whole new thing. I mean, they tried to do free to play with Unreal Tournament, and that didn't really work because it wasn't free to play originally. And the same thing with, Gears, they kind of gave that away to Microsoft, but you've got to be careful when you kind of change stuff around like that. And free to play, I mean, there are very few instances where it works very well. And a lot of those are very culturally specific as well. So like League of Legends is huge in Asia. And that's, visual customization primarily. So, I don't know. Sorry, I'm just...
Warzone's an interesting example because that is free to play. And that is the first Call of Duty in the West that is, outside of mobile that's been free to play, but it's tied directly into their premium games as well.
Yes.
So it's free to play, but it's also very much in the same, for better or worse,
they still have a single
ecosystem.
Player, right?
Right. They've got the Call of Duty, the yearly release. And, they didn't have a single player in Black Ops 4. And that was, I don't think anybody, even though a lot of, most people play mostly multiplayer, but a lot of people were pretty upset that there wasn't a single player game attached to it. And I think it was harder for them to market it. It was harder for them to get players attached to it. And
yes,
I think it was
really important. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. And I love the single player. I like Call of Duty games and shooters like Call of Duty that have relatively short campaigns because it's like I can play that and I can get through that and be done with it and feel like I've finished. It's not 80 hours. There's too many open world games that take 100 hours to finish, and I like something a little more linear, a little more bite sized that I can get into, and I don't need to play another Far Cry game that is just like a bazillion side missions and I just want to have a good story.
Blood Dragon.
Oh, Blood Dragon was great, right? Yeah,
Oh
so
God, sorry.
economical and so
Yeah,
funny. I
yeah.
loved it. Yeah, yeah. I just you know what? It was really interesting is I played Mafia, the remade Mafia game, and it feels very much like a Grand Theft Auto, right? You've got your cars, you've got your big city to drive around. But the crazy thing about it is that every mission there was all these story missions, linear like story missions that would take you through different parts of the town, and there were no little side quests. There was very few little markers on the map that you could go like find something at or like race people or like just that stuff didn't exist in that game, and it just felt like freedom to me. Again,
Mm.
like they say that open world is freedom, but when I see a map that is covered in little icons and every one of those is something to do or somebody to talk to or suddenly a
It's
little
a hassle.
mini game to play, it's a hassle and it overwhelms me. I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah, 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 yeah,
I
yeah.
feel paralysis at a certain point when I'm playing
Yeah, yeah,
that, and
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, nope, never mind. I don't want to play it. But when I go into a game and it's like, okay, there is this city that I can explore, but I'm just going on these missions and I don't have to go involve myself in all this busy work. I feel like much more invested in that game.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
yeah, yeah.
and I feel like that we've really gone off, and also it's kind of not very creative. These open world games are just open world, and they're just like one big map. Something like Dark Souls is theoretically it is open world, right? Like you can play a
The
lot of
choices are
different
open. The choices
areas.
are open. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You
The
probably
path.
shouldn't though.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you can go, this way, but you're gonna die probably. But you can do it. You can take a different approach, and I think that's more creative and more interesting to have some sort of organic gatekeeping rather than just here's a great big open world and go climb the towers and unlock the map and go hunt
So
and fish and
this
craft
is
and
the yeah this is
da da da.
this is the problem I had with Breath of the Wild. Is just that I know a lot of people love that. I mean, I did everything in it. I mean, I got all the Korok seeds as well, and got the golden poo, got the golden poo at the end. And I did all the heart, got all the shrines and everything. But I do. It just felt like it lost a lot of that kind of focus and
Yes.
um, I mean, yeah, the paralysis you feel like there's just so much, and it's
Yeah.
just enormous, and it feels like really bland as a consequence. It doesn't feel
Mm-hmm.
as. This is why I really liked the Link to the Past, not Link to Link's Awakening remake, because that was just such like a hit to the head of like, yeah, this is what a Zelda game is.
This is how
So
Zelda is. Yeah.
I know. I mean,
Yeah.
I love that game originally.
I think games like Ghost of Tsushima do a pretty good job with making the open world format feel more story driven and organic. And I'm really impressed with that game. There's still a little too much to do in there for my taste, but I was, and with Breath of the Wild, I liked some of the gameplay innovations. The climbing was really neat. Like there were really cool things in that game. But at a certain point with that game, also just started to feel like, okay, this is like, it's too open. There's too many choices. I want there to be more of, so many of the earlier, almost all the Zelda games require you to sort of unlock certain things at certain points, get certain tools to help you, get to new areas. And it's not just like do whatever you want. And I think that's one of the best things about Zelda. So yeah, I would hope that with the Zelda franchise, they move back to maybe a mixture of the two, where there's maybe a little more freedom than there used to be, but also more of the guidelines and the restrictions that help funnel you through the game.
The organic restrictions. And I thought, what was it? Was it the 3DS Link to the Past sequel? The one which you actually could tackle the dungeons in any order because you could buy the tools necessary. I thought that was a really nice concession. I thought that was really well done, actually. I thought the level design that was brilliant because you could then change into like a 2D, like it messed with your head.
Oh yeah, I remember.
I love that. But yeah, no, I think that open world it's also open world is unbelievably costly from a development standpoint. So I kind of wish it would not be as prevalent because a lot of the time those games never make their money back. I mean, the exception to all of this is always Grand Theft Auto, which just does insanely well every time it's released. But that's it.
It has a certain quality that most of these games don't have, right? I mean, Grand Theft Auto, like, the most recent one I played was Grand Theft Auto 5, of course, which has sold 1,700 billion copies at this point. But, Rockstar is the richest company in the universe. It's what's great about the Grand Theft Auto games. There is a lot of busy work. There are a lot of side missions, but man, they just have so much character. The writing is funny. They create a really realistic or like very and highly stylized world. Like it's always just sort of nice to roll around in Grand Theft Auto. Even if you're taking your time with it. And a lot of games can't really reach those heights. Because I've been playing since Grand Theft Auto 3, I think it was that I started playing, and they're just. I mean, they're not the best written games in the world, but there's something about them that they're just entertaining in ways that a lot of open world games can't quite achieve. There's a lot of imitators. There's some of the imitators have been good. Like I thought Sleeping Dogs was pretty damn good.
That was good.
Like there was some cool things in that game that the melee fighting was good, and like there was some pretty cool
Crackdown.
car
I thought
stuff.
was an interesting idea, but they never really kind of followed that up. I mean, they did Crackdown 2 and 3, but the first game was by far and away the best one because that was like superhero Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
But I mean, the ones, I don't know if I'd call it open world, but it is open world like are the Dragon Quest Builders games.
I like those games. It's like Minecraft.
But that's
with,
genius.
with RPG.
But the whole thing with the Minecraft thing is like, I thought that was absolute inspired genius because the whole thing about Minecraft is you can destroy and build anything you want. So that inherently breaks any kind of organic progress. Like in Zelda, like you're blocked off with like you need this weapon to do this. But in Dragon Quest Builders, you can just destroy everything. But they managed to make it work as a single player, action RPG, which I thought was like that's inspiredly brilliant.
Oh yeah,
I didn't like the second game quite as much because it was quite grindy. But the first game I thought was really great. I'm really focused.
Yeah, I played that for quite a while, and I was like, I like this so much more than Minecraft. I just can't get into Minecraft, but of course that's generational thing too. Like my son loves Minecraft, and I'm just like, I don't know, I don't get it.
Minecraft.
I like Fortnite, but
well, Minecraft didn't click for me until I played it on console, and I played it cooperatively with friends, and we built castles and stuff together. And I think that is probably the nicest cooperative sort of gameplay I've ever had, and like
I could see
some of the best friends, building castles. And one of my favorite memories was we built this amazing castle, and I kept collecting wolves because you can get bones from the skeletons, and I just had like 100 wolves in my like main atrium, and the thing is they were all kind of loyal to me, and my friend just accidentally hit me, and then all the wolves just went, and all I could hear over the voice was like, what the hell? And I said, and then he came back on. I said, just don't touch me in this area because they're just going to kill you. And he was, that I thought was really nice. And I like friends I hadn't seen for ages. We caught up playing Minecraft and stuff, and that was just really. It's like having a friend over when you're a kid playing with Lego. That's what it's like. So that kind of made sense to me that way with friends.
Yeah.
But like on its own, it's a bit of a weird one. So
probably just takes getting used to. Also, I don't know. Yeah, too many games. I'll never play all of the ones I want to play. I'll never get to that point, and that's okay. I'd rather have too many games than too few games.
Yeah.
I need to play some Resident Evil Village. I need to play more Returnal. I need to play Demon Souls, and then we've got
let me know when you do Demon Souls. Oh, yes.
I will let you know. Biomutant looks rad. I've got a review code for that. I need to fire that up. Because that just looks neat. I'm excited for it. I hope it's as good as it looks. And then I think maybe we'll get a little brief period with not as many releases, and then it'll be all crazy again in the Christmas, holiday season. Yeah, it's always a little overwhelming. Although now it just feels stupid. Like it is so stupid, isn't it? Like,
they don't do that in Japan because like the holidays aren't a big thing,
right?
So you don't get this like cluster of just stuff. So that's nicer. But I remember years ago having to go through all the games. I mean, I tend to play through all the Call of Duties, all the main shooter releases. like the single players at least. So because I used to have to make those kind of games, so I used to have to like keep up to speed. Like, okay, so this is what everyone's doing now. You know, and learn. And the thing is, you learn like things not to do, like, you know, like quality of life, best practices stuff, which is always very helpful. But the holiday season deluge is just stupid. I mean, and like you said, we talk about Titanfall 2, and that's like when really good games just get buried in all that. So it's a really stupid strategy.
Man, if they had just released it in February, you know?
Right.
If they had just released, or January, but really February. If Titanfall 2 had come out like February 5th or whatever, you know, like, right, you know, people had played their Christmas games and they were looking for something new, and there weren't a lot of other games coming out until like March or you know, boom, Titanfall 2, that would have been the shit. And instead
exactly.
EA, whoever was like making the decision at EA had like a brain aneurysm or something.
Well, because the Battlefield's a EA property.
It was their own game.
Like,
I know. Why compete with your own game?
Right. It's like, I don't understand what you're doing. It's like they're the same genre. You're doing.
Maybe it was like maybe they were just really laser focused on beating Call of Duty, and they're like, well, if we release 2 games, we'll totally beat Call of Duty. You know, we can release, and these guys used to make Call of Duty, so we're going to really stick it to Activision, and we're going to release them both. And with their powers combined.
I think that's exactly what happened.
Okay,
because
I used to until just now, but yeah,
it's so stupid that's exactly what they would have thought. Having worked at EA and having to sit in meetings demoing games, I can say yes. That is their management to a T. They would have literally think, 2 games, we could beat 1. It's just like, no, it doesn't work like that. But that's exactly
no one will think of it that way. You're like, they're still going to say Battlefield versus Call of Duty, and then everyone's going to be like, oh, Titanfall. Yeah, that was a stupid idea.
It's like, nobody would ever think of this. It's because it's stupid. Don't do it. It's so stupid it will work. No, it won't.
It's just so crazy. It might just no. Cool.
No,
well, I think that was a lovely talking with you. I have to wrap this up.
Me too. I'm actually going to get going too. So.
Yeah. Well, where you are, what is it, like 11 o'clock?
Yeah, coming up to 11, 11 a.m.
And here it's 7 p.m., so opposite sides of the world. That was very fun. Let's do it again. We should just do this more often. There's so many games to talk about and bullshit to talk about, so we can make this more of a regular rather than a once every few years.
Yeah, totally do some like streaming on like Demon Souls.
Oh, yeah. Fun. That would be fun. That would be really fun. I'm gonna have to brush up my skills before I stream though.
And I'll get some cool stuff to share with you as well, because that's one of the nice things, you can actually share items.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, that would be helpful. Cool, man. Cool. All right. Well, have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you soon. All right, and that's it. I hope you enjoyed listening to me and Ollie bullshit for an hour and a half. It was a lot of fun. I had a great time talking with Ollie, and I'm hoping to have him back on. I think there's tons more to talk about, and we do have to play some Demon Souls together, because I have not gotten nearly far enough into the remake that as I would like, especially considering it's one of my favorite games ever. Just life is so busy right now. It's crazy. But yeah, thanks for watching. Please like and subscribe. Subscribe to the podcast, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and if you are the reading type, subscribe to the Substack. I really appreciate it. My name is Erik Kain. This is Diabolical. Sounding off. Peace.